Hey everyone, welcome back. So, I've been wanting to make this video for a extremely long time. It's been one of the videos that I've been talking about in other videos saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to make this video eventually." Well, I'm finally making it. So, why I am for but against a Carter Hart trade, or should we trade or keep Carter Hart? A better title for this video. And for those who don't know, I'm a Flyers fan. They are my favorite team. I live in the Philadelphia area. That should say enough. And, the Flyers are obviously in this rebuild, and they're heading into probably the fourth year of it, but only the second or first official year of it. And what I really think with this team and with Carter Hart is, they've been selling off a lot of players. They traded Kevin Hayes, they traded Ivan Provorov, they traded away other guys, and they drafted guys like Matvey Michkov, Oliver Bonk. They've had guys in the system, Cutter Gauthier, Tyson Forster, such and such, for a very long time. And now we're tearing things down a little bit even more with the moves we made this past season. And there has been some questions, and it was even talked about even like as early as 2021, should the Flyers trade Carter Hart? And I am for, but against it. Let's get into it here. So stats-wise, let's go into his 22-23 stats. He had a 22-23-10 record with a 2.94 goals against average and a .907 save percentage. Honestly, those are good stats for a bad team. And I said it many times before in multiple Flyers videos that him and John Tortorella are the reason why we won even above 20 games. I feel like if we didn't have either of those guys, we're like a 15-win team. I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually kind of believe that. But they really helped out the Flyers in just carrying them to a much better record than they would have had if they didn't have him. And really, he's been a consistent goalie on a team that has not been that good for the past 3 years or so. He's really put up good numbers during that stretch. The only season where he had a below 905 was his third NHL season, and it was the short and weird bubble year where teams were in divisions and they only played teams within their divisions. And yeah, that was a concerning year for him. He faced a lot of criticism for that. But really, nothing much came of that season following because he got better afterwards. So definitely was just a rock in the road for his development. And again, heading into 23-24, there is a possibility because he is in the last year of his contract. Do we move him? Now, here, we're going to go through the positives and the negatives, and I may have missed some, I may have not, but I do want to go through it here. So, positives. They found a goalie. They finally found a goalie. And that's a good thing. I mean, they finally found a consistent goaltender who can be solid. I don't think we've had a guy that's been this consistent probably since maybe Ron Hextall. Maybe. And I know I'm 16. I haven't seen a lot of Flyers hockey as much as other people might have. But regardless, that is good. Finally finding a consistent goaltender. And the negative is we found a goalie. Yeah, because if we trade him, we don't have a goalie. Straight up. And you look at previous years. We had Hextall in the 90s and the 80s. Since then, we have not had a consistent goaltender come through our system. And I was around for the 18-19 season where before Carter Hart came in, we were trying out so many different goalies. Ones that I can think of, Michael Neuvirth, Brian Elliott, Cam Talbot, Peter Mrazek. So many goalies have come through the system. Calvin Pickard, Alex Lyon. There's just so many. And then you go back to that 2010 Cup final run. And, this was more or less my dad talking, not me. Because he brought this up to me when we were talking about it together. How in that 2010 final run with Philadelphia, yeah, they were a great team. They had Briere, they had Giroux, they had Voracek, they had Hartnell. They had guys they had a pretty decent roster of guys that made a good run. What they lacked was goaltending. Brian Boucher and Michael Layton are solid goaltenders, but they're not a goalie that can carry you through into the Stanley Cup Finals. And you look at previous examples, you got, Vasilevsky, you got Matt Murray at points, Marc-Andre Fleury. You think of those guys that carry you to a Stanley Cup win. And Philly didn't have that in 2010. And we didn't have that throughout the entire 2010s, basically. We didn't have a consistent goalie We were swapping out goalies year after year after year. We had Bobrovsky come in. We had Steve Mason. We had so many guys that would come in to the Philadelphia goaltending net, and it just never really worked out. With Hart, it has. And it's not a worry either that like he's not going to fit the timeline, and by the time we're out of this rebuild, which realistically is another 3 or 4 years from now, unfortunately, he is young enough where he can lead us through that rebuild. Hopefully his development doesn't get stalled, and he can still, by the time we're good again, he's probably going to be around 26, 27, so he's still going to be probably in his prime. So that would be definitely good. And I think, honestly, even with the negative factors that I'm going to mention here in a second, I think those positive factors overall are really what we should lean towards with keeping him. Another positive of, like trading him necessarily is we could get assets. That is a possibility. We could get a lot of assets. Maybe we don't get a solid goaltending like prospect in return, or a solid goalie in return, but we get a few first round picks. We get a solid, probably A-level prospect, because in this day and age in the NHL, good goalies at that, are a very hard thing to come by. We see a lot of goalies who are starting to get into, like starting to make their debuts, like Devin Levi is a big one. And, but you look at that besides that, like there aren't that many consistent goalies out there, and there are definitely teams that could use goalies as of right now, and could use at least one extra goalie to help them out and get them to a Stanley Cup. And Hart could be that goalie. And just the problem is, like, if Philly trades him, again, we don't have a goalie. Like, we lose that consistent goalie that we have. And, yeah, like, I mean, it'd be great to get assets back in return, but I don't think we'd want to trade away the first goalie since Ron Hextall, which is like 30 years, in 30 years that we've had a consistent goalie. Another negative of keeping him is Hockey Canada. There is that situation, and that is going to be announced probably very soon. I mean, like, with the sexual assault allegations, Hart was on that team. If I'm correct, he didn't make a statement. So I am a tad bit worried about him being involved in it. And if he's involved, my opinion changes quickly. I want him gone. I'm sorry. It's just too controversial to keep him on the roster then. But then we can't really move him. We don't have that advantage anymore, because teams aren't going to want to get him. And yeah, maybe he'll do things that make him maybe he'll go into a program or something that'll make him better. And that's obviously a thing that could happen, but teams are still going to be hesitant, and we won't get as much back in return if he is eventually involved in that. And then there was that situation too where he removed the Flyers thing from his Instagram bio. There's nothing to that. I think and honestly, it's kind of funny that I'm saying this on social media, but taking things like that on social media and blowing it way out of proportion is just stupid. He changed his bio. There's nothing there to that. If he unfollowed the Flyers, then maybe you'd be a little bit concerned. But he took him out of the bio. It doesn't matter. And Briere even messaged him and said, "Hey, are you good? Everything okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm great." So I don't see the problem with it at all. And then the other thing is, too, I do want to talk about this. I don't know if it's a positive or a negative. It's goalie depth. We don't have the best goalie system in the world. Our backup right now is probably Felix Sandstrom, Samuel Ersson, the third-string goalie. And then you got other guys in the system, too, there, like Ivan Fedotov, who I've said a million times in videos. Carson Bjarnason. I watched him play in a game a few weeks ago. And, yeah, that is a factor that I do want to take into consideration. And it really does, make me wonder, should we really trade him then if our goalie system isn't that good either? And yes, Samuel Ersson has looked positive at points, and I think he's definitely a guy who maybe in the future he could be a decent goalie. But I don't think we should move him. That's my final verdict. I don't think we should trade him unless if the Hockey Canada stuff is true. Then I don't think we should trade him. I don't see the necessity in doing so. If Briere wants to move him for assets, I won't be too mad, but I'm still not going to be very happy, because then we got to find a goalie. And again, finding a goalie through trade or signing is difficult. Drafting, it's not as hard, but it takes longer. finding a goalie through trade and such is very difficult. Because a lot of the time, goalies or teams don't like giving up goaltenders. It's just a fact. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts down below on whether or not you think we should trade Carter Hart. It's obviously definitely a discussion that should be had. But thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Hit that subscribe button down below. I really appreciate it. And hey, maybe I'll look back in this video in February if he gets traded and say, wow, I was wrong. Or maybe I'll look back at it and say, wow, I was right. But anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.